Welcome to the George Rockall Schmidt Show. Today, me and Damien are going to be talking about 1985 film The Stuff. Damien, what is The Stuff?
It's a creepy, weird food that comes out of the ground and takes over people's brains.
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. The tagline is "You are what you eat," and in many ways, it seems to be almost like The Thing. I think in that it's
a classic.
Almost like The Thing in terms of tension and in terms of its brilliant soundtrack. No, not in those things. It's almost like The Thing in terms of it's about a shape-shifting monster that can take over people, apparently. But as we're going to discover as we look into the stuff, it's very difficult to pin down what this thing actually is.
Yeah, it's really not fleshed out at all. It's never been clear what this thing is. I wouldn't really describe it as kind of an alien or a monster. It's in terms of the way some people talk about it, it's just something that's poisonous, and then it seems to be alive, and then sometimes it mutates, or sometimes I don't know. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So it's about this monster which instead of taking over people, I guess it addicts them, you might say, but it also takes over them a bit. And it's about this ex-FBI agent now turned industrial saboteur for the ice cream companies, literally. David Rutherford, who everyone calls Mo. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yes, of course.
It's about him destroying the Stuff's plans, but also the Stuff doesn't have a conscience or conscious. It doesn't have a conscience. It's not trying to go after people, but also sometimes it does.
But then it stops, and then.
But then it stops. But then it isn't, and it's a benign thing coming from the center of the earth, but also it's a metaphor or an allegory for big business taking over groceries. I don't know. Is this allegorical? This film?
I would say kind of yes. I mean, I think the best way to describe it is I think this movie was created between two people. I think the guy that wrote it was trying to do something allegorical, wanted to say something, something about capitalism and kind of dress it down a little bit. But I think he was kind of beaten down by the special effects guy who had much more enthusiasm and charisma and say, let's just make a movie about fucking deadly whipped cream.
I mean, that's what it is. The tagline is "You are what you eat," but it's never established what the stuff is.
No, not at all.
No, I mean there are many times where people say, "But what is it in the stuff?" And then the person from the FDA says, "Oh, it's completely harmless." Yeah, but what is it?
It's just like yogurt.
it's just like yogurt, but not at all, because it takes over your brain.
And melts your insides.
It melts your insides. So I was surprised to find that this film was made with a budget of 1.7 million. Estimated.
Oh, dear.
And you can see it. You can see that it does clearly have a budget.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think this movie is dirge, and I won't kind of. I'm not going to say anything otherwise, but I do quite like the effects in some places actually.
Okay, so to kind of stomp all over your little theory, it was written and directed by Larry Cohen.
Okay.
So there's only one writer, which seems a little unusual. There's no story credit or anything, I don't think. Written by Larry Cohen, and he what did he do, Damien? You know what he did. He's really famous for Black Caesar. That's right. He's really famous for Black Caesar.
Fucking Christ on a bike.
He did a film before the stuff called Special Effects.
Oh, give me a hang on. Let me see if I can find that. Have a quick see what that's. Where is it? Where the fuck is it?
But he's got a lot of writing credits, and some of them are obviously quite legitimate. So he's like a legitimate jobbing writer director, I would say. I mean, certainly nowhere near A-list.
Right. Okay.
Of course not. But he's been doing stuff.
Oh dear, sorry, I have to kind of cut you off. I've just looked at special effects, and obviously written and directed by Larry Cohen, but a director makes a movie based on a murder he committed. Oh, fucking hell.
Well, load up the poster.
Okay.
Is the main character like a real doll or something?
Turns out it's just a kind of an exploration of of his fetish.
Okay, so let's go back to the stuff. So, why are we interested in the stuff? Because at first, when I suggested this to you, the stuff is something that we watched together about 7 years ago, and I haven't seen it since. But it's always something that we would talk about and laugh at. And when I came up with the idea of putting it on this podcast, I thought, well, we can talk about it because it's not really a bad movie. It's pretty kind of funny, and it's pretty out there, and it's not good, but there's a lot of stuff going on. But then I've watched it twice in the last week, and I was wrong. It is a bad movie. It's a very fucking dull movie at times. It's weird because it has these islands of pleasure, these islands where watching it is total joy, because it's just, it's just fingers over brow, like, sweating and saying to yourself, oh my god, what were they thinking? And more so now that I know it was made with 1.7 million. I mean, this was a budgeted thing. This isn't just some little, like, well, our production studio is in our garage above our spare bedroom,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely my kind of thinking on that. I was very surprised to hear what the budget was.
Yeah, no, it had a proper budget. Let me find out who it was even distributed by.
They should be fucking ashamed of themselves.
Okay, so it was distributed by New World Pictures, which might mean nothing to you until I tell you that in 1970, New World Pictures Limited was founded by Roger Corman.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, how would you describe Roger Corman in a sentence? The king of shit?
Yeah, the king of shit, I think. He's just, renowned for making absolute fucking schlock. And I was probably quite surprised when I checked out, was it like Sharktopus or something like that?
Yeah, it's Roger Corman.
Yeah, and this guy's just been making the same dirge for like 30, 40 years. I mean, it's not that there's been. I mean, what's kind of remarkable about Roger Corman is there's like seemingly no progression, like in his career artistically whatsoever. I mean, I guess like he like Corman made his first couple of movies and realized that this is it for him, and he has not had any ambition to kind of tighten up his craft whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe to be fair to Roger Corman. I don't know how he would describe himself, and I don't really care. He's a businessman, and he's found his niche, and he's, in many ways, he's done very well for himself because he's found something that consistently works for him.
Mm-hmm.
And people know who he is. He's very successful, but yeah, he's the king of schlock. But not just of schlock, of like shit schlock. I mean, you could call Predator schlock, but he's the king of the B schlock.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of straight to video. I mean, originally, yeah, straight to VHS, but now it's, I suppose the equivalent is like Sci-Fi Channel movies, really.
Right, and as far as I understand, he has done the occasional thing for big studios. He has been. He's a name that kind of pops up when you read about other people's careers. He's a name that pops up, and they say, "Oh, and Roger Corman briefly worked with them," during the 1820s and things like that. And like I don't want to kind of dismiss him as kind of like he's just this guy who makes shit movies. It's kind of more than that. He does make shit movies, but it's also like he's prolific in what he does.
Yeah, I mean he's the producer in these cases, isn't he? But he must have hundreds of credits, right? He must have produced. Let's have a look. 411 credits as producer. Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Okay.
56 as director.
Oh dear.
And looking at the ones of the director, have you fucking heard of any of them?
Let me just fucking flip down
the only
to
one I've ever seen, which I actually thought was pretty good, was The Raven in 1963. But that's 1963. Honestly, that's looking at the stuff he's directed. That's the only thing I've seen.
Yeah, I cannot.
Oh, he did The Little Shop of Horrors.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Hang on, 1, 2, 3.
Are you counting out the 411 production credits?
8, 9. He did 9 films in 1957.
Fucking hell, fire!
How can you do that?
Wow, that's unbelievable.
All right, so his company produced or distributed the stuff, which kind of makes sense. And in fairness to the stuff, I think it's a lot better than other stuff. Ooh, sorry, that's going to happen a lot. It's a lot better than other stuff we've seen. Yeah, wordplay. I use stuff to mean
intellectual
stuff, not stuff. Cross-dimensional. So like I was saying, I don't think that the stuff is kind of a bad movie, but I'm wrong because it clearly is very boring, especially in the third act. What is so attractive about the stuff? Because the stuff is something that between you and I has been a bit of a meme.
Yeah, I think there's essentially like two jokes in this movie that we kind
They're
of
very good.
Yeah, well, they're not really good. They're just so kind of asinine and well, just fucking stupid. And we just repeated them ad nauseum until it was just kind of something that we could never shake from our collective, psyche.
It's not just that there are these two jokes. It's that like I was talking about The Room and Neil Breen stuff in a recent video, and well, like I was saying to you, because I watched that Neil Breen film with you, not Fateful Findings. What was it? Double Down.
Double Down, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think he's working his way through the alphabet slowly but surely?
I mean, I haven't looked at his credits, but alliteration could be, the theme there.
Yeah, because he's eventually going to do the next Marshall Mathers movie. Woohoo!
Was that your impression as well?
Yeah, no, I've got to walk on part as Dre. There's definitely
That's the
a thing.
movie I want to see.
There's definitely a thing with The Room and Samurai Cop and things like that, where it's kind of been made by somebody who doesn't quite see the world the way most other people do. Maybe often they're self-obsessed. Often I think they're kind of narcissists who think that what they're doing is way better than it actually is. The stuff is like that. I don't think that Larry Cohen was necessarily a narcissist or anything like that, because he's not the main character, for one thing.
He doesn't get his fucking arse out.
Yeah, he doesn't get his arse out and a little bit of bollock.
And uses it as an excuse to feel up that intern he's had his eye on.
He doesn't wear a black tank top.
Oh dear.
But there's definitely kind of moments in this which kind of feel like, it doesn't really read. Kind of like he's overlooked certain things, or the whole production team has overlooked certain things, and you're just kind of left thinking that's not what would happen, or you wouldn't do it like that. Case in point, the stuff is this miracle food that comes from the ground, and everyone thinks it's utterly delicious and becomes so addicted to it. And it gets marketed and marketed across the world. But the marketing campaign is like something from like a resort's magician show.
Yeah,
It's like, well, how do we advertise this wonderful food? Well, we'll get two women in sparkly bikinis to walk down a catwalk awkwardly and then eat some of it and look like it's fucking disgusting.
And the crowd went fucking wild.
Fucking wild.
Yeah, I mean, watching this back, I kind of felt like... I mean, one thing about this movie is that I thought was quite interesting was that it's kind of peppered with these adverts for the stuff, like TV spots, throughout the movie. And I kind of felt... It immediately kind of put me in mind of RoboCop, right? Because I kind of felt like there's something about the premise here which kind of... It's interesting, but it kind of feels like... If like Paul Verhoeven kind of had to play around with it, it could have been quite an acceptable movie.
I agree.
But what I found out when I was looking is that RoboCop was made 2 years after this.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's trying to play with satire, and it's just not punchy enough. It kind of feels It feels like the guy had the idea, but just didn't have the kind of wit to really get it off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, at times it feels like so achingly like an allegory. It feels so, it feels like someone wrote this and they were kind of like really trying to needle, I don't know, like the food companies or just mindless consumerism or something. But you can never really tell what it is they're going after. It definitely feels like they're going after something. They're making a comment or trying to make a comment on something, but I've no idea what that is.
Yeah.
It manages to be both like incredibly on the nose, but incredibly elusive as to its actual meaning. And I suspect that's because it doesn't actually have one. It's more about look at us, we have a meaning, but you don't.
And no, I think what we're saying is, I think we're painting painting ourselves into a corner here. It's actually a misunderstood masterpiece, and we just don't have the intellect to truly appreciate it.
Well, okay, not exactly what we're talking about, but here's a name you haven't heard for a while: Morgan Spurlock.
Oh, right, okay.
Morgan Spurlock, for anyone who doesn't know, is a documentary filmmaker. I wouldn't say heavily influenced by Michael Moore. I'd say bandwagoning not now, but bandwagoning on Michael Moore's popularity as a documentary filmmaker, who gained notoriety for doing a film called Supersize Me, where he would the entire film, as well as some kind of bits where he talks about nutrition and stuff. Most of the film follows him eating in McDonald's for every meal of the day for 30 days.
Yeah.
And when they ask him if he wants to supersize, he can't say no. And the conclusion of the documentary is, if you eat McDonald's 3 times a day for 30 days, you're gonna get fat.
Yeah.
It's like, well, duh. And I kind of feel it's like that. It's like, well, yeah. If you become addicted to something and it consumes you, yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right. That's what addiction is.
So I mean, kind of fails to say anything interesting about it whatsoever.
This would have been a much more hard hitting movie if it was if it was about the stuff, but the stuff is like crack cocaine and people are just fucking enslaved to it.
Well, that was, I mean. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that kind of I completely forgot was the ending of this movie when they agreed to kind of like try to like hit that fucking point home. So after, because the world's just getting carried away with this stuff, everyone's in love with it, but there's only this one kid and this one this one guy from the FBI, who've seen it wriggle once, and they realize it's bad, right? And they manage to expose it, and they get the military to kind of crack down on it, and they announce it to the world, this, that, and the other. And then it's like, it shows, like, right at the end, right? They just show it, like, being loaded out of the back of a fucking, like, station wagon. And you've just got these, like, fucking hood rats, like, fucking opening up and, like, tasting it with this really smug look on their face. Like, they're moving on the streets now. And I guess it's, like, on top of whatever they were trying to say about consumerism, they just wanted to make some quick dig about fucking narcotics there as well. It's just, and then as soon as it did that, it just immediately flashed up with directed by Larry Cohen. It's like, what the fuck?
But it doesn't land.
No, not at all. I mean, apart from anything else, it waits less than 2 seconds before it slaps you with the fucking credits. And at that point, I wasn't quite sure what I was trying to fucking digest at that point.
But what I wanted to say before we start was going on your RoboCop thing. I had the same thought. I thought, Not even if if Verhoeven had done it, that'd have been great. But even if it had just done the RoboCop thing of making satire which actually has a point to make and is funny, rather than just kind of like, addictive food is bad. Yeah, that's why there's no addictive food. I mean, it's not ice cream. It's stuff that people can't stop eating. There's no food like that. I mean, what you're really kind of talking about is addiction to narcotics or something. But what I thought was, apart from kind of it would be better if it was Verhoeven, I thought this would have been a really good movie if someone like Terry Gilliam had directed it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. If you can, well, one of the things that this movie struggles with is this the nature of this monster, and definitely Gilliam would definitely kind of flesh that out into something a lot more than it fucking was. Because sometimes, I guess it's the limitations of the effects, but it appears as like this kind of solid pancake thing, or sometimes it's clearly shaving foam, and you're just not quite sure what it is, or kind of like why it is really.
Right, and you could, I think if someone like Gilliam or someone else had directed it, you could overlook all that because he would have directed it with a bit more intelligence. where the film isn't about that. The film isn't about, this is an allegory for whatever. The film is kind of a bit more kind of twisted than that. Like a lot of things in Brazil aren't explained. We never know kind of exactly what's going on with the information department or whatever. It doesn't matter because it's not so much about that. I mean, at least Gilliam would have had a character we could follow. Mm-hmm. Rather than possibly the worst lead in a major, or not a major film, but in a no budget film I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I mean that guy couldn't have been more fucking wooden. And like one thing I kind of I forgot about the kid in this movie, right? But I feel like it was completely fucking redundant, right? They could have whatever they kind of wanted to. I think they used this family to kind of they used it for the reveal of the stuff, and how it's bad and what have you. But following this kid after that point, I think it feels like they just left it in just to kind of meet its minimum runtime.
So if anyone doesn't know, when we say the kid, what happens is as well as this story about an FBI agent who's trying to work out what the stuff is, literally on behalf of the ice cream companies, apart from that, there's kind of a side plot where a kid opens up his refrigerator one night and the stuff has spilt over and it's moving. And he doesn't trust it. But the rest of his family are like, eat it, eat the stuff. This isn't weird, eat the stuff. And then the kid and the guy join forces.
They've never been a more classic crime-fighting duo.
Yeah, right. You know as well, I looked on, just to throw this out there, I looked on IMDb's page about the stuff, on the trivia, because usually there's some really interesting stuff on the trivia. And it's something like the 5th thing down on the trivia page for the stuff. 13 out of 18 people found this interesting. One of Rupert Grint's favourite films. What the fuck? How did they find that information?
I have absolutely no idea. That's got to be pulled out someone's arse, no?
Yeah, surely. I mean, why Rupert Grint? I mean, Did we say why we like it? I think we said, I thought it was going to be so bad it's good, but it wasn't. I thought it was going to be actually good, but it wasn't. Why do we like this? It's batshit, right? Is that what we said?
Yes, I wouldn't say it's batshit at all. It's like, I think we've kind of been dressing it down for its lack of imagination and kind of intelligence. I don't think we can kind of get away with that. I don't know. I think between... Fucking hell, I'll try once more. I think
David's interaction with Goliath was just sublime.
All right, so that stays in there, doesn't it?
I can't think of the word sublime without thinking of Subway sandwiches, which are almost entirely made of lime. Sublime
dear.
makes me... You know when people kind of look like... They purse their lips together like a dog's asshole? The word sublime makes me do that. Like,
Oof. Ooh,
sour. Sort of thing.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
Yes,
unfortunately, okay. I've got this fucking feeling that now that you've said that, that's all I'm going to be able to think. And then subsequently, I'm going to start falling into that habit. So thank you very much for that.
Not only that, it's not even like a satisfying sour taste. It's like, it's sublime. So it's like, oh, it's sour. Oh, but it's not quite there.
I'll just get through this. I'll just get through this. In a few seconds, it'll be over. Like those toxic waste sweets.
Yeah, it doesn't quite live up to the hype.
I mean, it's sour, but it's just nothing pleasant about it whatsoever. It becomes quite arduous. It becomes work very quickly.
Yeah, but when we were 12, behind the back of the bike sheds, having a wank. When we were 12. And all the other kids were like, oh, toxic waste sweets. Oh, we were like,
that's mental.
We're going beneath the bleachers to do some stuff.
Oh, dear, bringing it back.
I think that the stuff is interesting in that it is by fucking leaps and bounds the film which loses its audience quicker than any other in terms of what happens on screen. Not in terms of it being boring, but in terms of, like, you know when you can watch a movie and you think to yourself, oh, someone actually went through that script and went, they wouldn't do that. Why would they do that? We need more reasons behind this. They did not do that with the stuff at all. So much so that the first thing we see is some white ooze coming from the ground in the middle of Antarctica or somewhere, or Alaska or something. And someone bending down and going, what is this shit coming out of the ground? Better put it in my mouth.
I've got to put it in my mouth, yeah. And like his mate comes over and it's like, are you eating snow again? It's like, this fucking deranged lunatic.
Get on your knees, I'm going to put a bullet in your head.
Oh, dear.
Who is this lunatic? Because it's clearly not snow either. It's clearly like, it looks like really toxic melted plastic.
Yeah, it's not fucking appealing at all. You wouldn't look at that and think food at all. You think that, it'd be it'd be like a very like highly viscous like fucking bleach, you know?
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. You would look at that and you would think, "What's this?" Not, "I better use my dirty gloves to scoop some up and lick some off."
I did think that when he turns around and offers it to his friend, right, who kind of immediately turns his face up, but not for very long, and kind of like submits. I really did think he was just going to put his mouth around that guy's hands, but he does sensibly like kind of like drip a little bit off his fingers.
But that would be better if this film was really fucking out there. Like, yeah, people don't behave like human beings.
It's the same script beat for beat. They just they hypersexualize everything in it.
Yeah, like the song isn't just like can't get enough of the wonderful stuff. It's like can't get enough of the wonderful stuff. It's not just hypersexualized. It's like Crichton trying to lie. I mean, in many ways, I think it is a bit sexualized. Like all the ads are kind of quite sexualized. Not just the women in spangly bikinis, but
wiping it all over their mouth.
Okay, so I'm going on to a complete tangent here, but they've got this thing about we want to advertise this amazing food. Let's do that with old people. I don't get that.
Yeah, so I guess one of the adverts that they run in the movie, you've had all these women kind of dancing around, and there's like a proper 80s dance troupe in an alleyway somewhere, kind of really kind of dressing up, trying to make it look, I don't know, hip for lack of a better word. But then it kind of goes from one end of the spectrum to the other, and it just cuts to these guys, to this old couple in what is presumed to be quite a fancy restaurant, and they're there, and the husband asks his wife, "How is the food?" And she just kind of spits up. I mean, she just kind of spits up and makes this cries out like a sort of fucking crow or something, and just demands, "Where's the stuff?
How's the food, sweetheart?"
Yeah, almost exactly like that. But we have like said this to each other and made jokes for it for fucking years now. We've said it hundreds upon hundreds of times, right?
That's what the stuff is to us.
And yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, because every time, if we ever mention this movie, that's exactly where my head goes.
Yeah. But it's so stupid. It's it's funny, but it's stupid as fuck.
It is incredibly stupid. And the thing was, I always kind of thought that she said something, right? But when I watched it again, and I watched it back quite a few times, I cannot discern for love nor money what she's saying. She just makes this kind of random assortment. She just kind of belts out this random assortment of consonants. It's just noise.
Because the way we would do it is be like, I'd say, "How's the food?" and you'd go, "I want more stuff." But she doesn't say that. She goes, or something.
Yeah, it's
right?
just something like something. Yeah, where's the stuff?
Where's the stuff? Yeah, that's it. She says, "Where's the stuff?"
Yeah.
Where's the stuff? And it's like, Maureen, this is a restaurant. They don't serve stuff.
Like
the
it
fuck
just
you doing?
Cuts back to the husband, and he's ushering over the waiter, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm really, really sorry, but my wife is starting to have an episode. If we move quickly, this shouldn't be an issue for any of your other patrons, but she does need to leave now, but she will require assistance."
Do you have any gloves that go past the elbow?
How's the food, sweetheart? That's nice.
Where's the stuff?
The stuff is here now. Great new day sensation. Light and free now. Get you elevation. Enough is never enough. Enough is never enough of the stuff.
Like, the only time they're not just old people. Like, we're not being cruel and saying, "Oh, these people are too old." Like, they're genuinely old people. They're like in their 70s.
Yeah, I mean, the lady looks well into her 80s, if you ask me.
Well into it. Like, she looks like she can't walk. And I just think that if you're not advertising a mobility scooter or you're going to die soon insurance, why would you have those people in your advert? Like, you'd have like a young couple who are enviable and who you could aspire to be.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it's not legitimately an advert, but I think it's just one of the many ideas in this movie that was in no way fleshed out. I think in quite a lot of regards, I think when they were like workshopping this, they came up with exactly what they had in the end product. Is that they didn't cut anything away. They had this, and they couldn't generate anything else, and that's why all of this is in this movie, because they had no choice.
Well, another clip that I want to show is this one.
When I was a little girl, I didn't think there was anything that I liked better than ice cream. Now I'm a big girl, and I've decided there's something I like better. Much better. It's called the stuff. And believe me, enough is never enough.
When I was a little girl, I used to love ice cream. And it's like, but you're 60. What? You know? Why the fuck are you interested? Who cares?
Yeah, unless it's supposed to be someone in that universe, it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's useless. Absolutely fucking useless.
Yeah, because it's just such it's such an illogical way to advertise it anyway. You know, oh, when I was a kid, I used to love ice cream, but now I found something better. Yeah, because you're an adult, you found sex and booze and living life. You know, is Larry Cohen under the impression that people like they had ice cream for the first time at 5 years old and nothing fucking topped that ever? Like, all these adults walking around going, "Oh, I wish there was something better than ice cream." Life doesn't get any better than ice cream.
That could be Larry Cohen's reality, you know. I mean, there's a huge contextual clue that the audiences, you know, will always remain forever, you know, oblivious to.
But what I was going to say, unlike the other advert with the old woman, like the advert with the kind of the older woman who's not an old woman yet, who's you know kind of like she's wearing a fucking fur coat, like she's freezing on set, and she's there saying, I absolutely love this stuff, and it's got 0 calories. That's kind of a bit sexy. I'm not saying I find it sexy, but I mean she does it in a way where it's kind of a bit sort of flirty.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Okay, I didn't get the same vibe, but I can kind of. You were properly rubbing one out when you were watching it, weren't you?
Yeah, it coloured my experience.
And she's like, yeah, you know, the stuff. Enough is never enough, and you're like, oh yeah,
I'll give you enough.
Never be enough.
Try this where this original is going to blow your mind. No, but I don't know. She just seems a bit kind of like, oh, now that I've discovered this stuff.
Oh dear.
I mean, can you? Okay, so again, 2 things. I was going to say, can you imagine advertising your product by saying, "Our product's so good, you'll never be able to stop stuffing your fucking face, you porous piece of shit." But then I realised that's exactly what Pringles does. Pringles, you addicted bastard.
Oh dear. Yeah, I suppose so. I'm sure we could delve in there, and there's going to be loads of fucking adverts which do precisely the same fucking thing.
Coca-Cola, a glass a day, every day, and then die.
And then death, yeah.
Why would people eat this when you're not telling them what's in it? And it's almost like it's almost like very overt how secret this stuff is.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where, and this does seem like it's trying to have a go at Coca-Cola. There's a bit where our main character, David / Mo, because he's got 2 names, there's a bit where he's walking around and you know, he's like, how come we can't find a list of ingredients or something? And someone says, well, it's the same law that protects Coca-Cola's secret recipe. There's nothing harmful in it, so they don't have to tell us what's in it. Well, they do tell you what's in it. On the side of a Coca-Cola can, they have a list of ingredients. They just don't tell you the ratios. They'll tell you like every ingredient. Like on the side, it'll tell you, you know, sugar, water, E291. It'll tell you all of that stuff. It has to by law, otherwise people might die. And the idea that you would market this product and there wouldn't be any fucking ingredients on the side is insane.
Yeah, it's the idea that the FDA, you know, are at speaking with representatives. Coca-Cola, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, it's a secret recipe. Like the FDA just kind of turns around and it's like, all right, lads, back on the bus.
Yeah, all right then. We won't stop anything. Michael Moriarty plays David, who's never called David, he's called Mo, and he's called Mo because he always wants Mo money. And he says this 3 times in the movie.
Oh dear.
My friends call me Mo because I always want Mo money. It's just like, no, they don't.
My friends call me Mo because I always want potatoes.
So your friends call you Mo because you're a dickhead who insists they call him Mo. I mean, what?
It's like, David, can you come over here? No! It's Mo!
Call me Mo!
oh, fucking hell. If you don't, he's going to be like this for the rest of the afternoon. Just fucking say it. No, I'm not going to fucking humor him.
I'm not going to pander to him. He's a
Yeah,
40-year-old man.
If I validate it now, then I'm only enabling this madness. He needs to get fucking help. Just fucking say it. Mo. Hello.
It's such an interesting introduction to him because you don't realise he's the main character until he's in the
We realise there's no one else that could be considered a main character.
A main character until he's like in the second or third scene he's in. He's in this scene where he meets the ice cream cabal, and they're like, we need you to infiltrate the Stuff's factory.
Your assignment, should you choose it.
It's like that, right? And you know, and they're all kind of, they're not just like ice cream men. They're meant to be captains of industry. It's quite stupid. And he hits one, and he's like, tell the Bureau this, and hits one. It's like, well, you're not working for us now.
Yeah.
Just hit one of us. I mean...
Yeah, we're going to have you written off. I mean, you clearly can't... Yeah, you're clearly unstable.
Yeah, and someone actually says to our main character, our James Bond-esque hero, someone says, you're not as stupid as you appear to be. And his retort is, no one is as stupid as I appear to be. That's what he says.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about this guy is that, like, no matter what he says, right, it's like the bottom... When he's acting and he's speaking, only the bottom half of his face moves. I felt if you can just watch the top half of his face, if you obscure his mouth and mute it, you wouldn't know he was talking whatsoever.
Right. There's a bit where he goes to the FDA guy who's got the big Doberman, and then the FDA guy goes upstairs to eat more stuff or some shit, and he's looking at the Doberman who doesn't like his master, and he says, "Why is your master scared of you?" And he could have just, he could have been in a fucking sound booth. His face does not move. And then the guy hides under a small desk, and the dog goes mad.
I mean, that's like something that they only seem to explore in this one scene of the movie, but apparently the stuff has like intelligence-enhancing properties, because as this guy is trying to make a call for help, he grabs his phone, and the dog, who has pinned him down in a less than terrifying fashion, knows to go for the phone line and rip it out of the socket at the wall. Right,
and this is where there is genuine... I wouldn't even say confusion. There's genuinely contradictory law behind what the stuff is, I guess. Because sometimes it does appear to be intelligent and to have an agenda, and other times it seems to be it's completely benign. It's just that the people who get addicted to it become addicted to it, and they have to have it, and they have to distribute it, and they have to make money out of it. And I can never tell who's pulling the strings. Is it an alien sort of life form, or some sort of, does it have a brain or doesn't it?
Yeah, it's never clear. I mean, the people that surely would be addicted to it I would fail to see their interest in, distributing it and sharing it out, surely. It'd just be, their prime focus would be to hoard it, no? It's so that kind of implies that there's something else kind of pulling strings, but they're just, well, it's just never fleshed out. It's never kind of explored, and it just, yeah, I'd be just kind of never sure what it is you're kind of dealing with in this movie.
Yeah, you're never sure. I mean, I've got written here, every scene is a story of how things wouldn't play out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking particularly of the scene where they go to the post office. They find that like all of the FDA, they find like basically everyone who's of interest to what the stuff is, to Mo finding out what the stuff is, has moved to Nowheresville, Georgia. Mm-hmm. For some reason. So they go there to find the address, and then the post office says, "Oh no, just leave us alone. Nothing weird's happening here. We're a collective conscious now. Just leave us alone. Nothing weird's happening here."
You just open the door, it's Lemon Party.
But I guess before we talk about that, we've got to talk about Chocolate Chip Charlie.
I suppose so. I don't know what there is to kind of say about this dude. I mean, when you look at one of the posters, it lists the cast, right, and it talks. You've got like 4 names on there, and it just and you've got the 4 characters, I suppose. I wouldn't say really main characters. But it lists, their most kind of notable role alongside them, and this guy
was a cab driver in Ant-Man.
Yeah, well, for him it lists SNL, and I have seen him in bits and bobs before. I kind of feel like he was probably a lot of where the money went.
Yeah, so Mo goes over to see, I think it's a Rolls Royce, it's some sort of nice car in Nowheresville, Georgia. He goes over to check it out, and then Chocolate Chip Charlie jumps onto the car and then attacks him and like punches the ground like he's a superhero. Like the ground's gonna crack almost. And Chocolate Chip Charlie is he's on the board of directors for an enormous, at least nationwide, confectionery company, and he's famous enough to be instantly recognizable. There's a part late. Okay, so again, if you don't know what the stuff is, this should make you smile just by how random this film is. There's a part later where they go to someone who I guess is like Alex Jones, but in a military uniform, who has a private army to use his radio. There's a bit later where they say that Chocolate Chip Charlie has an audience of 20 million, or 20 million people love him.
Yeah.
So there's this dude who's like an executive of a cookie company or whatever, who's really famous, looking for an address because he wants his company back. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and he's doing it in kind of like this ragged kind of linen shirt and a straw hat as well, you know.
Right.
He may as well be chewing on an ear of corn as well.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think he's most famous for SNL.
Oh yeah, I was looking at his personal quotes on The Worst Job I Had in Hollywood is, I once did 5 horror films in a row, and one that was a cult favorite was, and the one that was called a cult favorite was called The Stuff. I was an alien from another planet.
He wasn't an alien from another planet.
I don't know. Well, maybe that was, you know, how it was pitched to him. You know,
But he wasn't. None of it was from another planet. None of it's extraterrestrial. It's stuff that's coming from the inside of the Earth.
well, maybe I have to kind of like rescind what I was saying earlier. Maybe there's actually loads that's kind of on the cutting room floor. It's just
Well, maybe. Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
for this movie to make sense, you kind of need like a sort of handbook that you kind of leaf through as you're going through.
I mean, I'm not denying that. I just think it's funny that he says I was an alien, because even if this stuff was from another planet, he wasn't. He was taken over by the stuff.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell has never said, "Oh, I really enjoyed doing The Thing." Yeah, I was an alien from another planet. What?
Yeah.
Whatever. That's bizarre.
Yeah, I think it might. I don't know. I think obviously I'm reading this well out of context here, so I think maybe. I think it could be meant in a different way. I'm not totally sure, but it's still quite a bizarre quote.
So anyway, Chocolate Chip Charlie and Mo Money, they look around this town, and then they're confronted by some people, and then they have a massive fist fight.
Yeah.
And they're having a fight with these townspeople, and these townspeople are trying to kill them. They've got weapons and everything. And Mo Money and Chocolate Chip Charlie end up getting out of there on a boat.
Sorry, they're making their getaway, and you've got these kind of like 3 yokels that are in pursuit. But if you look, as they're trying to get this boat off, you'll see that one of the guys who's trying to act like he's grabbed the boat and he's trying to reel it back in, but you can quite plainly see he's pushing the boat out to water.
Yeah. And they don't want to get wet. They really don't want to get wet.
Yeah,
so they don't.
He did not like it at all.
No, because you could have got them out of that boat. You could have dragged them from there. You know, if you'd have got your knees in there. But
yeah, well, you could have. I don't know. Maybe you could have tried like a second take where. Maybe teach the actors how to fucking use an oar or something. I don't know. I mean,
but anyway, they're in this boat, and then it cuts to something else for like 10 seconds, and then it cuts back to them, cuts back to their story, and then they're just in a diner. It's like, so they got chased out of town by these people who are mad. Mm-hmm. And they went to the diner of the same town.
Yeah, they're only like a half mile down the fucking road as well.
No, it feels like that. It feels like they're they were in the boat for 10 minutes, and then they were like, "Oh, let's get off here." Whereas normally, maybe not
they're
normally,
literally on the other side of the river to where those fucking yokels are still eyeballing them as well. I mean, they know exactly where they are.
They just have to they just have to go across the bridge. But it felt like if you were attacked like that, you would get into that boat and you would just go all night.
Yeah, easily.
You would get miles and miles and miles away from them.
If you got into that boat, you kind of feel a bit fucked because it is a rowboat, you know, for 2 people, and you're not going to cover a lot of miles in that.
Well, no, but I mean, they've got this rowboat for 2 people, but it's got an engine in it.
I did have an engine. I didn't
And-
see. I kind of looked dilapidated to me.
Okay. Well, never mind. My point is, though, is that that rowboat is their only vehicle. Once they get out of that, they're just people on the street again. Surrounded by people who are on the stuff and want to kill them, don't want the secret out. I mean, you just get the fuck out of there.
Of course. But, after they've had this delightful meal in this diner, it cuts to the next shot where they're both lynched and they're hanging from a tree.
And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. And credits, Larry Cohen.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the film about what not to do.
Oh, dear. The only thing that kind of seemed like it was made any kind of sense to me in this movie was a little bit later on where Mo and I think it's his wife that have gone in to investigate.
No, so for clarity, it's not Mo and his wife. It's there's a point where Mo Money goes to the woman who's in charge of the ad campaign for the stuff,
Right.
And she's making another terrible advert, where for some reason to sell this product, you have 2 catwalk models who look fucking awkward and uncomfortable eating the stuff. It's so stupid. He goes to see her to find out, because obviously she would know what's in it, wouldn't she? Mm-hmm. But she doesn't. He goes to see her, and he basically tells her what's going on, and then they're a couple.
Right. Okay.
And in many ways, I wouldn't say I respect that because it's different and it's not got this kind of will they, won't they sort of thing. But that would have been a lot more tense.
It's immediately they're fucking with no rubbers, within 20 seconds.
Immediately.
But I mean,
Okay.
the movie's got class.
That's commitment,
Damien.
Damien.
But it's heavily implied.
They get it on, and it's pretty established. Yeah, they like each other. They're in a serious relationship from now on. The reason most movies don't do that is because there's tension and it builds something throughout the movie. If at the end the main characters get together, not they meet and now they're fine together.
The world's ending. We may as well shag.
I mean, I think that this film would have actually been more interesting if he was just married. That was his wife. They'd been married for 5 years. Because you never see that. You never see a main character like him, and it's yeah, he's married. His wife's really supportive, and
Roll credits.
roll credits.
There's no drama here.
But they get it together. She's of no consequence in the movie at all.
No, not
No
at all.
one's of any consequence. This is bullshit.
I mean, Chocolate Chip Charlie. He's in. We met him. He was in it for 2 minutes, and then we don't see him again until right at the end.
Where he comes back to die.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the way it's kind of presented as well. Is when he comes back to die. All the main characters have got to this radio station with this military dude, and they want to expose the stuff over the air and send out the warnings and what have you. And then Chocolate Chip Charlie just miraculously appears in the station and says, "Put me on," and they're like, "Okay." But he whisks the woman aside into this room to have a private chat, and he just kind of explodes with ooze for no reason.
For no reason.
Someone that was kind of so abjectly against it. He's he just is it now. But it was, I guess, the last of their effects budget when they were shooting, because it was the best this kind of stuff looked. Where this guy melted. I mean, I wouldn't say it looked fantastic, but it's the most interesting effects they had.
Well, there's a shot, which I'll show now, of when he's exploding, and it's almost like it's a theatre prop.
Oh yes, yeah. It looks like it's almost like Spitting Image.
Yeah, it's not amateur by any means, but it's not good.
It's caricature, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's like Spitting Image. It belongs in something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the dog is even worse because the dog transforms, and then there's a shot, a wide shot of it, and it's just a normal dog.
Yeah, and not only that, it's gone from it being presented to be really aggressive, and you can just quite clearly see that the guy under the table, and the dog's just quite happily licking its face, wagging its tail. It's just there couldn't be less peril in that room.
Yeah, the guy under the table is Danny
Aiello or something.
Danny Aiello, who's a really recognizable actor. He's the guy in Leon.
Yeah, he's in loads.
Leon's boss. And which kind of brings me to Patrick O'Neill, who plays a drunk man who was in charge of the stuff. And I don't know if he's meant to be drunk or if that's the way he's been directed or he is just drunk. I've no idea. But after Mo Money leaves Chocolate Chip Charlie, he goes to see Patrick O'Neill, and Patrick O'Neill's like, "Ha, I'm in charge of the stuff. I don't eat it myself, even though it goes through ventilation shafts to infect people. I don't eat it. I'm not infected. I'm just in it for the profit."
And then after all said and done, you have Mo sit him down and as a sort of, I don't know, I guess it's supposed to be like a scathing twist. He sits the two corporate guys down and forces them to eat it. And then you see immediately that they're well into it.
They're well, yeah. And right at the end, I guess we'll skip to the end. We'll talk about the kid in a minute. Right at the end, these two corporate guys, it's not really that well established who they are, apart from one of them was part of the ice cream conspiracy at the beginning. They invent this thing called the taste, which is basically the stuff and crap.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
They say, oh, it's got enough of the stuff in it to be delicious, but not enough for it to be addictive.
Or have any of the mind-controlling or body-mutating properties, I think was the line.
And bearing in mind, this film ends... We have jumped ahead, we need to go back. But bearing in mind, this film ends with, like, the world burning every fucking tub of the stuff they can find, because, there's a huge outcry. It's enormous. This has been taking over people. Bearing in mind that the stuff has been completely taken, not just taken off shelves, but destroyed. These two people would be, number one, in jail, and number two, they wouldn't be allowed to use anything with the stuff.
Yeah. It's not just that. I mean, they throw this one final fucking curveball with the plot and the nature of the stuff and its origin, and it's just like, well, you can't stop this. It's coming out of the ground everywhere, and it's like, what? Have they succeeded or not? I mean, people may be wise to it, but if it's everywhere, it's you haven't. Oh, I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I think that I don't know. The thing is there's lots of stuff that comes out of the ground. People don't eat it.
What this movie needed was you just in the corner, just shouting at all these situations.
What the set needed was that.
What the crew needed.
It needed someone to walk over to Larry Cohen, rip something from his face so it hurts just a little bit and say, "Larry, do you see this? Do you see this shit? Stop smoking this."
No, you just see the guy's on a huge, massive coke bender, and he's always on set with a flare gun in his hand. No one dares fucking defy him.
Right. It's
I mean, he's not aggressive at all. In fact, he's really enthusiastic about everything. He loves every second of what he's doing, but he comes up with shit, and no one can say anything otherwise.
Well, okay. We've talked about the end then. Let's talk about the kid, the side plot with the kid.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a kid who, I want to say, is not important to it at all.
Yeah, completely redundant.
He finds a tanker of stuff that's empty, and he decides to himself, well, the best place to hide would be inside this tanker.
I mean, I kept looking at this movie every time there's kids in. It's just that's just another way that kid would have instantly been fucking disposed of or instantly fucking died. I mean, I really wanted to see, as soon as he jumped into this tanker, just thousands and thousands of liters of this stuff just pour in, and he's drowned within fucking minutes,
And that's what happens, and then there's one of the worst green screens. He's in the tanker, and then when they start to fill the tanker with goo, then they green screen it, and I guess they green screen it because it was a miniature of the tanker.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's because they didn't actually have enough stuff to fill this tanker with, or to fill it in even a fraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I just remember the shot. It's just that the stuff pours in halfway, and you can see I suppose in the reality of that situation, it's inches deep. The kid's in no fucking peril whatsoever.
No peril at all.
At that rate, he's got the better part of a day before it becomes a threat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I guess this is a bit of a tangent, but this movie, for a movie that is about, this fantastic yogurt, it doesn't have a lot of that as a prop. It really is for a movie called The Stuff. There isn't a lot of stuff in this movie. There's a bit where the kid right at the beginning goes on this runs amok in a supermarket and whacks out all these tubs of stuff, and every tub is empty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can
yeah.
tell the way people pick up tubs of the stuff. There's just fill it with fucking water.
Yeah, something. It had never had any weight to it.
Never had any weight to it, and you can really see that. And then there's, he's in this supermarket and he's got like a baseball bat or something, and he's whacking over huge displays of stuff, and there's hardly any mess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of rampage for this kid's like what, maybe 12. You can see he's young, right? He's quite small as well, and the idea, this is the notion of this kid going on this rampage and like no one being able to apprehend him, because like what you see, right? I suppose it would be like, I would say well over like $10,000 worth of damage to stock, right? Because there's just fucking everywhere. And he puts it all on the fucking ground. He's smashing it to fucking pieces. And you've got these kind of like two lukewarm like supermarket assistants barely holding him back. It's like, what the fuck? This is a child. Put him to the fucking ground.
Put him down.
Don't you know
your Sainsbury's training?
What I quite liked is when the family like forced him to kind of eat the stuff, and the kid kind of pulls a bit of a switcheroo, and they do him like immediately. They find him out, and they chase him out of the house. Like, immediately, like Mo's outside with his car. He's like, did you see the stuff move? Get in my car. It's like, what on earth? He just happens to be driving by at this point, and he just immediately picks up this child. It's like, well, this could child
anyone.
definitely looks like he needs your assistance, but this could be like a domestic violence issue. I mean, are you sure you just want to open your doors that quickly and make that kind of assumption?
He was going to see the child because he read about him destroying this supermarket display.
Yeah.
He was going to see him like that, but the kid doesn't know who the fuck this guy is. The kid was just running from his family, and it was like, okay, tall ginger dude, I'll get right in there.
I did quite like the next scene. He's in the car, and like you can see the kid's ill, and he throws up in the back of the car, and he says like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just ate shaving foam. I threw up in your car." And like it kind of works in Moriarty's favor here, like the state of his acting, because he just says yes in the most kind of flat wooden way, and it's incredibly fucking creepy. I would have liked
he's driving the car like he's driving the car like they're in a sitcom. Like he's got both hands on the wheel, and he's like constantly looking in the mirror to look at the kid, and he's like, like, this must be the most fucking like winding road in the world.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you have to like be moving the steering wheel left and right like every second?
Yeah. Have you ever, when you've like driven cars in real life? Do that, please.
Do that, yeah.
But this car is a prop car. It don't work. No. Just act like you're. Just do the steering wheel thing. It's fine.
That's when we realised there was a gas leak in Michael Moriarty's trailer.
Moriarty's delivery on like I think he just says yes. It's one word, right? And it's. If you cut the right tone with like the score live, it's really creepy. It could have like really slotted into a completely different movie. I mean, I kind of wanted it to like cut instantly to Mo just shoveling dirt, over a grave, just like burying this child, having immediately abducted him.
And then like on the back of like the headrest of the car, just making a very tiny nick, and you can just see there's like 20 in a tally.
And then you just see him, he's on the highway again, different town.
So then you may think we've talked about everything in the movie, but no, the movie takes a bizarre turn when Mo Money decides to go and visit Colonel I want to say Albert Speer, but it's Colonel Spears. It's like Colonel Richard Dickey Montgomery Gromit Spears or some shit. And this guy, it's never said who this guy is, but this guy is basically a rich dude playing soldiers.
Right, yeah.
He's not in the actual army, is he?
No, he's not.
I mean, I'm kind of tempted, as I said earlier, to call him like an Alex Jones, but he's like a kind of like militia version of Alex Jones.
Well, it might be intended to be the military. It's just how they've just done a really lame portrayal of it in the movie.
No, it's definitely his private army, because he owns 2 radio stations in Atlanta, which is bizarre as well. But then there's a bit where they're like, "All right, boys, we're gonna invade the stuff or something," and then to invade the stuff, his private army get in literally 5
taxi cabs, yeah.
and it's almost like it's celebrating that they ran out of money.
Yeah. I don't know, I had a wonderful fucking shot of this dude in the passenger seat of one of these taxis. And he's looking back
at the camera.
And he's... he's looking back, and he just kind of, with the biggest fucking smile on his face. I guess the character himself is is beside himself that he's got his gun and he might have an excuse to use it. He looks so happy, like a kid at fucking Christmas, and I love
it's
that.
It's like a Tommy gun.
Yeah, it's something like that.
You like, why wouldn't he have an M16 or something, or why wouldn't he have something like that? Why would he have like such an old-fashioned gun?
It was the first thing they saw in the model shop,
It was like that, yeah. And basically, he gets
if you
on
look
the radio.
closely, you see this little orange cap on the end of it.
Yeah, right. But he gets them to a radio station, and then they make this broadcast, and that is basically the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't get it. You get Chocolate Chip Charlie, who is the disgruntled ex-owner of the Stuff's biggest competitor, saying, "Don't trust the Stuff; it makes you weird." And then suddenly, like, everyone's burning the Stuff.
Yeah, doesn't explore anything about the nature of addiction at all. Just everyone is suddenly, has their eyes open to this, and they immediately jump on that bandwagon. It's all kind of fine.
There's an amazing B-movie shot, which really kind of should be in a much smaller production, where Colonel Spears and his taxi crew get out of the taxi to storm a stuff factory, and like he shoots someone, and then it immediately cuts to him standing over the body, and the body's like spewing white stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something like, "I don't like the sight of blood, but this is disgusting." And it's just like, what is this shit?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty fucking bad. I did quite like the shot of Chocolate Chip's face after it kind of melted and exploded, and you've just got several chunks of Garrett Morris on the floor, and just the shaving foam kind of like engulfs it slowly. I quite like that. I mean, it's crap, but I liked it.
What about the bit where they set up a rig where the wall becomes the floor?
Yeah, I like that. I definitely
I like the idea because obviously a lot of effort went behind it, but it doesn't look good.
No, not at all.
It just looks like it's meant to be like, oh, the stuff is defying gravity. It's coming from the floor to the wall, but it's like, we can see what you've done. It's almost like this is a movie made just from the outtakes or the bits that have been cut out of another movie. There's a bit really towards the end where Mo Money is saying to some of the soldiers, one of which has Down syndrome, of the soldiers, the private army of Colonel Spears, he's saying, "You can't shoot at something that you don't like if it's inside you." And it's all kind of like, is this a message? Is this what we're talking about now? Are we talking about hate?
Yeah.
But it's never built upon or anything. It's just that, and it all seems to be kind of like maybe this was like a 400-page script that they just chopped the fuck out of,
like indiscriminately as well. It's like lost kind of all the key points, but like fucked if they were going to give it a proper read.
Yeah, or maybe not even indiscriminately. Maybe it was just kind of like, well, we're going to negotiate with the director how to make this smaller, but the director insists that all of the themes he wants to cover remain. So they do that, but all of the themes get half a sentence each.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a bit where Colonel Gromit says in the radio station he owns, because Chocolate Chip Charlie is so famous, he's the person who should be speaking. There's a bit where he says, "I will permit the coloured man to speak."
Oh,
like,
shit, I completely glossed. I must have glossed over that when I watched it. I did not remember that at all.
Like, what the fuck is that?
"I will permit this colored man to speak. But speak one word of the Commie Party line, or one word in code, and I will blow his head off."
So like Chocolate Chip Charlie is talking to the kid, and then Colonel Gromit like puts his hand in front of the kid, so Chocolate Chip Charlie can't touch the kid. It's not like he suspects him of being infected or anything. He just doesn't want a black man touching this kid. Like, no, seriously, that's not. That's what is going on. That is what is going on in the scene.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, okay, fine, I can believe it. This character is racist, fine, but why?
And he's like, he is, he's painted in quite a heroic light, I suppose, at this point in the story, right? He's definitely coming come in to aid, and he's providing the resources to kind of get this to make this grand fucking exposure, right? So
yeah, and that's why this film is interesting, is because it's actually in many ways it's multifaceted. Like, this guy's racist, and you're clearly meant to think he's racist and not like him because of that. It's not like the film is racist. It's meant to be showing him in a negative light.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, he's also instrumental in saving stuff. And I really get the sense they did it on purpose because they wanted to make it quite complex, and not everyone who's good is entirely good, and people who are addicted to the stuff aren't necessarily bad, blah blah blah. Like, I feel like they wanted to make an intelligent film somewhere, but then that got completely lost.
Yeah, I think they would have been better suited to kind of introduce that that character trait a little bit earlier than like 2 minutes from the end, really. Which is, I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I mean, it's no more than like 6 minutes before the end of the
It's
fucking
very
movie.
close to the
Yeah,
end. Yeah.
well, they definitely.
I mean, is it meant to be saying? I mean, it could be saying racists are people too. I mean, for all I know, it just doesn't go into it.
Well, I mean, there's not enough to ever kind of fully understand or make a legitimate conclusion, I don't think.
No, and that's why I say it does seem like a lot of it was cut to pieces.
Yeah.
But that is just conjecture. I don't know if maybe this was someone's vision and it came out exactly how it wanted. Maybe this film, Damien, is the only film that has ever been made that has been exactly like the director-writer wanted it to be. Maybe Kubrick maybe Kubrick and Larry Cohen, they're going to have a conversation one day in the afterlife, and Kubrick's going to like kiss his feet and say, "You got it exactly how you wanted. Still shit, but exactly how you wanted."
Yeah, it's the only movie known that has like endured every step of the process and has not every step of the production process and has not suffered any single compromise along the way. It's actually quite remarkable.
Yeah. Are we done with the stuff?
I think so. I mean, that's the stuff. We pretty much did it almost beat for beat.
Okay, so that was us talking about the stuff from 1985. I'd love to know what you guys think. I mean, one of the reasons that we tackle the stuff was we mentioned it on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people did say, "Oh, I remember that." And I thought kind of it was worth a go. So if any of you guys have any suggestions or anything, just write them in the comments.
I dread to think.
Someone will read them. What is your favourite Kevin Spacey movie?
Click.
Well, thank you very much for listening. This podcast is available every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. If you want to download it, if you want to get it from iTunes, it goes up usually sometime on Sunday. And as I've said before, I am going to be doing a website at some point where you will be able to listen to and download this podcast for free without signing up for anything. And I'll let you know here when I do that, but it probably won't be for a while.
Next time we're going to be talking about the Oprah movie.
Yeah. There isn't an Oprah movie, I think we should say. It's what the movie would be if there was an Oprah movie.
I fucked it up again.
Don't get excited. Someone immediately stopped the podcast and called up like 12 people and were like, "There's an Oprah movie."
Get the word out.
I've got it on good faith from George and Damien. There's an Oprah movie.
Who? Yeah, you know what I mean.
All right, well, thank you very much. See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You know why they call me Mo?
No, why?
Because every time people give me money, I always want more.
Well, you know, Mr. Rutherford,
Yes, sir?
I don't think you're quite as dumb as you appear to be.
No one is as dumb as I appear to be.